Hello everyone, welcome to today's session. My name is Anand. I'm a technical partner manager at Shopify, and we today talk about introduction to Shopify apps. In the previous session, you would have seen how to become a Shopify partner, how to set up a development store, and how to customize Shopify using Shopify themes. Today, we talk about how to make custom services be made available to Shopify using Shopify apps. In today's session, we'll cover what is a Shopify app, why do merchants require a Shopify app, and how to go about building a Shopify app. We'll also take a look at the types of Shopify apps and when a particular type of Shopify app has to be used. We'll also take a look at Shopify's APIs and how data is being made accessible to Shopify merchants and partners. We'll also take a look at developer tools that will help ease the development processes, and I'll give you a couple of tutorials that will help you start off the Shopify app development process. Let's get started. So, what is a Shopify app? So Shopify is designed in such a way that it helps merchants start off as easily as possible. Right? What this essentially means is Shopify gives you the necessary tools and fundamentals resources to start off a commerce business. But what we realize is every single merchant is unique and they have unique business cases to cater to. All these unique business cases would require solutions that are custom to help cater to these needs. All these custom solutions are made available to merchants through Shopify apps. So how do merchants figure out and find out Shopify apps? And come the Shopify App Store. The Shopify App Store is a collection of free and paid Shopify apps or plugins that help uh, extend the functionality of a Shopify store. Right? It becomes an easy way for a merchant to discover the service that they're looking for. Let's take an example. Um, One of the common use cases for a Shopify merchant is to integrate with a marketing service. Let's take email marketing for that matter. If a merchant is looking for an email marketing solution, they just go to the Shopify App Store, search for email marketing, see the list of email marketing solutions that the App Store has to offer, and integrate one of their own choice. It's as easy as that. And we would want all app partners to integrate and make a public app so that it becomes as easy to integrate onto Shopify as other solutions that are already present on the App Store. Apps become really crucial in the day-to-day working of a Shopify business owner. We see an average Shopify merchant has 6 apps installed on their store. Right? At present, the Shopify App Store has 5,000 plus apps, and it's constantly growing. Let's take a look at a Shopify app from a developer point of view. From a developer standpoint, Shopify apps, simply put, are web applications that integrate to Shopify using Shopify's APIs. So we know that Shopify is a SaaS platform. What this essentially means is Shopify kind of takes care of its own servers, code base, and does not make its database be available to developers. So how do developers integrate onto Shopify and get the data that they require, right? Uh, an example would help uh, answer this question better. So let's consider that a partner is trying to make an order management system. An order management system would require information of orders, let's say products and customers be made available from Shopify. So the developer kind of chooses to make API calls to Shopify to get this information and store this information on their own tech stack of choice and create the application. So to sum it up, a Shopify app um, is integrated onto Shopify and takes data from Shopify using APIs, but runs its own infrastructure and built is using the Shopify partners tech stack of their own choice. Right. So from giving an overall merchant perspective, Shopify is at the center, which is integrated to different services that the merchant chooses to use. Right. The services can range from marketing services, let's say logistic services, or any particular service the merchant is looking for. Let's take a look at the types of apps that are integrated onto Shopify. Shopify apps can be broadly classified into 3 types: public apps, custom apps, and private apps. Public apps on Shopify are the apps that are made available to Shopify merchants on the Shopify App Store. Right? So merchants can easily come onto the Shopify App Store and install a public app of their choice. Public apps are uh, designed in a such a way that it can be installed in any number of merchant stores. All public apps go through a Shopify review process before they are put onto the Shopify App Store. Right? Partners can easily create a public app by going through their partner dashboard and choosing to create one. Custom apps are a little different than public apps in the sense that it is created for a single merchant catering to a particular use case of choice. So, for example, if there is a merchant who has a custom made solution, maybe like a CMS, which is custom made for that merchant, that would be integrated onto that store by using a custom app. Private apps are a little different from public apps and custom apps in the sense that they are integrated directly onto a merchant's admin as opposed from a partner dashboard. And they are built in cases where custom apps don't suffice. Let's take a look at how to go about building public, custom, and private apps. To build an app, first you have to log into your partner dashboard, navigate to the app section on the left. Once you're at the app section, you can see existing apps that you've already built and the status of its installs, ratings, if there are earnings, and the API health of a particular app. To create an app, you can just go to the create option on top, click on that. You get an option to create a custom app or a public app of your choice. You can select the public app and just enter the details and click on create app. It's as easy as that. Right? As you just said, spoke about earlier, public apps are reviewed by Shopify before they are actually published onto the App Store. One important thing about a public app is that a public app has a listing on the App Store. A listing is essentially what a merchant sees before they install an app onto their store. A listing becomes really important for Shopify and for partners because it's their first point of uh, reaching out to a merchant. Let's take a look at the Shopify listing to know and better understand what a listing is. This is an app which is currently on the Shopify App Store. So this is how a Shopify app listing would look like. So when a merchant sees this, they see look for features that the app has, what the app can do. There's a way to reach out to the app support, and they can also navigate down to see the price of the app. Right? So this is what a merchant would probably see before they install an app. Going back. A custom app can also be built in a similar way. So to choose a custom app, you won't have a listing for a custom app because it's not to be meant onto the public app store, whereas it's not reviewed by Shopify as well. And it can be directly installed from here onto a merchant store. Let's take a look at how a private app is installed or a private app is set up on a Shopify. To set up a Shopify private app, you'll first have to go to a merchant admin. So I have my test store here. In the test store or in the merchant admin, go to the app side of things. Once we are in the app section, you can see all the public apps that are installed on the merchant store. You have to scroll all the way down. Sit down, you can see working with the developer store, manage private apps. This is how you create a private app. Click on manage private apps. And you can create a private app from here. Private apps authenticate via HTTP as opposed to public and custom apps where the authentication is via OAuth. I'll walk you through this a little bit more deeper as we move on. As spoken about earlier, public has a set of requirements that is to be fulfilled, and there's a review process before it is submitted onto the Shopify App Store. Documentation here specifies all the requirements that a public app has to go through before it is submitted for review. Once the review is done, it's automatically pushed to the Shopify App Store. Let's summarize. To summarize, public apps are apps that are on the Shopify App Store, and it has to be installed on unlimited stores and has to go through a review process. Custom apps are installed via the partner dashboard directly onto the merchant store and is restricted to one single store and caters to a particular use case. Private apps, very similar to custom apps, have a little bit of restrictions in the sense that it cannot be embedded within the Shopify admin and authenticates via HTTP as opposed to OAuth, where like custom or public apps. Right? Consuming Shopify's APIs. Let's take a look at Shopify's APIs and how data is being shared between Shopify and apps. API stands for Application Programming Interface, and it's a way to communicate between Shopify and all the other apps. First and foremost, to get Shopify's APIs and the data, you will have to authenticate. And authentication is key. This is where there's a handshake, and you make sure and ask for the permissions that you require from Shopify. Right? So, for example, here we have an OAuth authentication flow, which is being demonstrated. So the app that is being installed on the merchant store is Order Printer, and the Order Printer is asking for Shopify's permissions, which are to view products and to view Shopify account data and to view Shopify's orders. So this is specified when you set up the OAuth authentication flow, and depending on the permissions that you required, you will choose to ask for products. In the early scenario where we talked about an OMS system, if you want to, let's say, read and write products, you would probably have to ask for permissions to view products and edit products as well. Right? I've also attached the documentation of OAuth authentication here along with the slides. Shopify makes its APIs accessible through both GraphQL and REST-based APIs. Right? It's a choice of the developer to use either GraphQL or REST-based APIs. And Shopify APIs can be broadly, let's say, we've segregated into two. The first is admin API, and the second is storefront API. Admin API is basically where you want information from the store's backend. So this would be information regarding Shopify's, let's say, products, orders, customer information, inventory info, and the rest of the information that you see from the Shopify's admin side of things. This information is available to developers via REST and GraphQL-based APIs. Right? I've linked both the references here on the slide as well. Storefront API gives you control over the buying experience of Shopify merchant, and let's say you're building a separate channel. So if you have restrictions on the existing channels like online store and Shopify POS, and you want to develop a separate channel, you probably have to use the Storefront API. Storefront API is available only in GraphQL and is not made accessible via REST. Okay. Let's take an example of how a Shopify API looks like. Shopify APIs are made available in JSON format. So here we have an example of a product API and a method to, let's say, create a product with a default variant. So we are using a post method for the Shopify product API to create them. I'll also be linking all the docs of the Shopify APIs, both in admin and REST, and how to go about setting up authentication and how to make API calls. Let's move on to tools, tutorials, and resources. Let's take a look at a couple of tools that helps ease Shopify's development process. We have the Shopify app CLI, which helps kickstart the Shopify app development process. The Shopify app CLI kind of does all the heavy lifting for you and kind of automates the process. So I would highly recommend using the Shopify app CLI if you're starting off as a Shopify partner. Then we have Shopify Polaris. Shopify Polaris is Shopify's design framework. It has a set of guidelines on uh, how to go about like designing for Shopify. It also has React components that can be reused and all other information which like help set up a Shopify design experience. Tutorials. Um, so we have various tutorials on Shopify, and navigating to these tutorials is a task on its own. And I would start off with the first, how to build a Shopify app blog, which is like the latest tutorial that we have, which kind of explains a step-by-step basis on how to develop a Shopify app. And if you're like me and you wish to have tutorials in videos, which is easier to follow, I've linked up the basic tutorials of how to build a Shopify app using Road and React. You can also look at how to get started with GraphQL in case you're new to GraphQL, and how to work with Shopify webhooks is also a great tutorial to start with. If you wish to do a course on how to start Shopify app development, you can go to the Shopify Partner Academy and do the app development fundamental course, which helps you understand Shopify app development and start off as easy as possible. Right. And last, I've also like connected the Shopify community and Shopify Slack channel here. It's easy to like find help in the Shopify community or the Shopify Slack channel. It's always kind of active, and you can reach out to me as well in the Shopify Slack channel um, if you have any questions. I highly recommend joining the Shopify Partner Slack and be posted on the community to see the latest updates on Shopify app development.